My Friendly Neighborhood has already cemented itself as one of my favorite survival horror games. Granted, I've pretty much only played Resident Evil games so far, and I've loved most of those, but still, don't let the typical Mascot horror vibe of this game fool you. Nothing against those games in particular, they do what they're meant to do well. Sell toys to children, despite most of them featuring a disturbing amount of child murder. They are gameplay light and knee-deep in typically convoluted lore, and that's all fine. I don't really care about any of that. My Friendly Neighborhood, on the other hand, is actually built from the ground up to be a full-fledged survival horror game, and my god, did the developers nail basically every aspect of that. On top of that, the game was developed by just two people, John and Evan Kaminsky. I am just so genuinely impressed with this game, and I have been since I first played the demo over a year ago on this very channel. I was so impressed with it then, and I just couldn't wait to play more. Well, the full game is finally here, and I played it, and this is a video about why I liked the game. I realize that this is just me stating the obvious, but I didn't have a good way to segue into the rest of the video, so yeah. Anyway, the go-to comparison with this game is that it's Resident Evil meets Evil Sesame Street, and nearly everyone talking about the game has said that exact thing or something very close. I am also going to say that exact thing because it really is the best way to describe this game. My Friendly Neighborhood is Resident Evil meets Evil Sesame Street. You play as a normal everyday repairman named Gordon, as he makes his way through a seemingly abandoned TV studio to shut down a mysterious broadcast of a long-defunct children's show, and things go... well, let's just say that good old Gordy is very dedicated to a job that most likely doesn't pay him enough. I'll get more into the story later, but I just want to mention right at the start that they fully commit to the Sesame Street-esque setting, and the execution behind it is so well done. The areas you explore, the enemies you fight, and even the weapons you use are thoughtful and authentic to what you'd expect for a kid's show of this type. You can trust me on that too, because I have 2 kids and I have seen a lot of kids' TV. Some might even say too much. Me, I would say that. The setting also plays a very critical role in the story, and it all comes together to elevate the whole thing way beyond just being a gimmick, but again, I will get more into that later. For now, let's talk about the gameplay, since I think it is a massive highlight that really makes this game stand out. My Friendly Neighborhood is a survival horror game through and through, all the way down to its foundations. This is clearly a game made by people who have a deep love and understanding for the genre, and that shines through in how you play the game. In typical survival horror fashion, you are thrust into a dangerous environment and must use your wits to survive. You explore various areas to find as many resources as possible to help you not die horribly, while also solving puzzles to progress through the game and story. My Friendly Neighborhood excels at all of this. The areas the game has you play through are tight and so well designed that they honestly harken back to Resident Evil 1. There is this immense satisfaction that comes with the exploration, and despite the smaller map size compared to some bigger AAA games, there are so many secrets to find. Like all good survival horror games, you are rewarded for exploring as extensively as possible, and the game does a great job incentivizing said exploration. Whether it be in the form of neat Easter eggs, more resources, or certain items to get you a much needed edge. If you do want to 100% the map, then you will have to do some backtracking. There are items you get in later areas that can be used in the earlier areas. One of the benefits of the areas being as small as they are is that the backtracking doesn't feel as tedious as it might in other games. Also, I just want to put out there that the explorable areas being a bit smaller is not a bad thing. The devs did such a good job using the space to its fullest that size truly doesn't matter. There isn't a wasted hallway or room in the entire game. They all serve a purpose, whether it's gameplay related or world building related. The level design is seriously top tier, and everything fits together so wonderfully. Like I mentioned earlier, the setting of the game is utilized to its fullest, and one of the most apparent examples of that is the environments. At one point you explore one of the sets the show used, and it looks like it was pulled directly from the set of Sesame Street. A lot of attention went into the small details, and that extra effort pays off because it feels more genuine in its presentation. It feels like you're exploring a defunct children's studio, and it does wonders for the overall immersion. Obviously, I can't talk about the presentation of the game without talking about the main enemies you will be survival horroring against. Some crazy ass puppets.
Now, take one of your hands, put it in your mouth, and swallow as hard as you can. Now you have one hand inside of your stomach and one hand outside. This is the best part. Take your other hand, put it next to the hand in your mouth, and swallow again.
Now, the enemies of this game might not be as freaky or monstrous as other horror games. Once again, this is an instance of the devs being authentic to the premise, and they don't try to disfigure the puppets into horrible creatures to make them more scary or whatever. All the enemies in this game legitimately look like they belong as extras on a kid's TV show, and they feel more real thanks to that. The designs may make them look friendly, but these puppets are definitely not. If you get too close, they will grab you and throw your ass to the ground. The worst part is they are invincible. They cannot be killed, only immobilized. It doesn't help that you're just shooting them with leathers and smacking them with a wrench, but still. You can knock them down, but as soon as you leave the room, they'll be back up and out for blood next time you return. This is where one of the most survival horror elements of the game comes into play. Duct tape. You can use duct tape to tape up downed enemies so they can't get up again, removing the threat of that one specific enemy for the rest of the game. Naturally, duct tape is a limited resource, so you're forced to be very strategic with which enemies you want to keep down. In fact, all resources are limited, and when and where you choose to use them plays an important part in how well you survive. This gameplay really is survival horror focused, and resource management is a key factor in this kind of game. Even your item storage is limited and clearly takes a massive amount of inspiration from Resident Evil 4. Not only do you have to manage what you keep on you at all times, but you also have to organize your items to use the space as efficiently as possible. You'll usually want to keep some space free for the various puzzle solving related items you'll come across, and trust me, there are plenty of those. The puzzles are yet another bright spot in this game. They're not the most complicated or original most of the time, but they are really well executed in their designs and implementation. Puzzle solving is a classic facet of survival horror, and the devs knew that. I mentioned in my Signalis video, check that game out if you haven't, that in my opinion the perfect video game puzzle makes you feel smart for completing it while also being solvable without using a guide. You should be able to figure them out yourself and have a sense of accomplishment from doing so. My Friendly Neighborhood achieves this. Maybe not as well as Signalis, but I still had a ton of fun solving my way through this game. All the different gameplay elements of My Friendly Neighbor come together perfectly, and it's just fun. It all adds up to be so much fun. There's even what I call the fidget spinner button, and when you press it, the only thing that happens is Gordon flips whatever weapon he has in his hand. My 5-second attention span absolutely loved that. Additionally, the story is engrossing enough to make you want to progress through the game just to see how it all plays out. I'm not going to go into crazy detail in terms of the story, but some of what I want to say does lean pretty heavily into spoiler territory, so if you want to go into this game completely blind, which you should, then skip ahead to this time code. If someone asked me to describe the story of My Friendly Neighborhood in one word, I would simply say optimistic. Or at least if you strive for the true ending of the game, I would. There are gloomier paths to take should you choose to. Honestly, the story of this game kind of subverted my expectations in a way that pleasantly surprised me. The game is technically a horror game after all, and going in knowing that gives you a general idea of what you'll encounter. I think My Friendly Neighborhood actually flips those expectations in an interesting way in order to tell a truly heartfelt story, one that stands out against the typically bleak landscape of horror. The true story of the game is uplifting in a way I found to be super refreshing. I don't think it'll win any awards or set a new standard or anything like that, but I really enjoyed it. I thought the characters were fun, there was background lore that builds a better picture for the world of the game, and the ending. Man, I love the ending. My Friendly Neighborhood walks a fine line between unnerving and goofy, and it may dip a little bit too far into one side or the other occasionally, but for the most part the balance is there. To be frank, my biggest complaint with this game is how short the runtime is. My first playthrough clocked in at a little under 5 hours long, and by no means is that a bad thing. For an indie project of this size, they pack so much game into those 5-ish hours that are so well worth the cost of admission. I just mean that I was loving the experience so much that I wish there was more of it. Luckily, there are some post-game extras that help alleviate that. The story may be a bit short compared to other games in the genre, but there is still a ton of built-in replayability that just adds even more shine to this gem. Calling back to the days of yore, you can find secret tapes throughout the game that unlock cheats you can use to spice up repeat playthroughs. Beating the game on various difficulties also unlocks bonus toggleable modes that accomplish a similar thing. For example, you can unlock speedrun mode, which adds a little timer to the corner of the game to track how fast you can finish it. There's also a free cam mode that lets you take the camera any and everywhere, and oh man did I love that a ton. It's definitely worth checking out. The devs clearly had a lot of fun playing with what you can find outside the bounds. It's insane in the best possible way. Look, I'm not saying this game is perfect, but if you look at My Friendly Neighborhood and just see another Mascot horror game trying to ride the wave created by Five Nights at Freddy's, then you're not seeing the full picture. Every aspect of this game was created and designed to serve the message at the core of the experience. The gameplay is immaculate and demonstrates a wonderful understanding of what makes survival horror so much fun to play. Again, there's nothing wrong with those games being what they are. That's what they're trying to be. In my personal opinion, My Friendly Neighborhood is just an immense step up, especially in terms of engaging and thoughtful gameplay. Keep in mind that I do love this type of game, and clearly that's going to create a certain level of bias. Survival horror isn't for everyone and can be quite punishing, especially on the harder difficulties, which this game has plenty of. If this does pique your interest at all, then you should for sure check it out. Try the demo first if you want. It's a damn good demo that will show you exactly what the full game will offer. It's only $30, and there was a clear effort to put as much content into the game as possible. I'm definitely going to be revisiting this game more than a few times in the coming months. In fact, I'm going to go play it right now. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you played the game, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. If you haven't played it, then go do that. I've been Tin from Tin Maxx, and I will see you in whatever we do next.